Cover Up, Chapter 8, Pass Deflection. Stevie pulled on some sweats, walked into the bathroom, and decided that brushing his teeth and combing his hair was a good idea. He was nervous, although he wasn't sure why. He couldn't imagine why Susan Carroll would call him in the middle of the night and insist that she had to see him right away. Guilt? Anger? Either one could wait until morning. He checked himself in the mirror. "You're no Jamie Whitsitt," he murmured, just as he heard an urgent knock. He took a deep breath and, without checking to see who it was, opened the door. Susan Carroll was standing there, bundled in a coat that went down to her knees. He stared at her until she said, "Are you gonna let me in?" "Oh, yeah, sorry," he said. "Come on in." As she walked past him in the room, Stevie felt as if she had grown a couple of inches since that morning. Maybe he was so sleepy that he was slumping. But as she took off her coat, he glanced down and saw the reason for her growth spurt. She was wearing high heels. Forgetting that she was clearly in a state of high anxiety, he pointed at them and said, "What's the deal with the shoes?" She gave him an annoyed look and then looked down at her feet. "Tal, Vincent," she said, "we had to go to this big muckety-muck party tonight with a bunch of NFL corporate contributors and some people from the league and some players." "Players? Don't the players have curfews and not players from the Dreams or Ravens?" she said. "Other teams. Peyton and Eli Manning were there. Terrell Owens was there." "Terrell Owens? I thought everyone hated him. Will you stop interrupting? Vincent told me to wear the damn shoes, okay? He's a jerk. You got him pegged right. Now, can I sit down somewhere and tell you what is going on?" "Please do," he said, pointing to a chair next to the bed. The idea of getting her to sit was appealing. He was getting a little bit dizzy trying to look up at her. She sat down, her body sagging into the chair. "Do you want something to drink?" he asked. He had not seen her look this upset since he learned her uncle had been part of the kidnapping plot at the U.S. Open tennis tournament in September. "Yes," she said, "thank you. Is there a Coke in your minibar?" He handed her one, and after she had taken a long sip, he sat down across from her and said, "Okay, start at the beginning and tell me what happened." She nodded and took a deep breath. "We went to this party," she said. I felt completely out of place as soon as we got there. It was some private club, a really big place, and it seemed like half the men were smoking cigars and everyone was drinking. I was getting a lot of the 'aren't you pretty' and 'you can't possibly be 14' lines you've heard me get before, and all I could think was, if my dad knew I was here right now, he'd kill me and he'd kill Tal Vincent." "Did you think about leaving?" he said. She half smiled. "Yes, but I figured I'd just get through the night and then tell Tal I wasn't going to any more parties. And there was no way my parents would have let me come out here if they'd known this was part of the deal." "So what happened next?" he said. She took another sip of her Coke. "I'm standing as far into a corner as I possibly can when this guy comes up. It's obvious he has no idea who I am. He just sees a tall girl in a dress. He says he's Dr. Somebody and he works with the Dreams. I tell him who I am, thinking maybe he'll make a connection and realize I'm 14 and get that look off his face. Well, he's very impressed that I'm on TV. In fact, he says, 'I should have known when I first saw you that you were on TV.' But he's still not realizing you're 14. No, I should have probably said something about the original concept being to put two teenagers on the air together. But by this time, he's going on about his job and how close he is to all the Dreams players and how most of them would never get on the field without his help. At one point, he says, 'I'm kind of a magician. I wave my magic needle on Sundays and everyone plays. Eddie Brennan wouldn't have seen the field the last 2 months without me.' So now he's got my attention. I ask him what he's talking about, and he tells me all the players who need pain-killing shots to play, that Brennan's had a bad knee since November, and that if not for painkillers, half the league wouldn't play in December and January." Stevie knew. Some new players got cortisone shots and other painkillers to play, so this was no shock, although he hadn't thought that many players did it. He let Susan Carroll continue, though, falling back on his reporting experience, which told him to shut up and let someone tell a story when they were willing to do so. She sighed. "I'm getting to the important part." He hoped so. "I asked him a few questions about the shots, if they were legal, if the league knew how often the players got them, that sort of thing. He gives me this look and says, 'I've never given any player an illegal shot of any kind. A player gets suspended. It isn't because of anything that comes out of my needle. Something in the way he said it made me think there was something else he wanted to tell me, but even drunk, he knew he shouldn't. And she put up a hand to indicate Stevie should be patient, which wasn't easy for him at that moment. So I said to him, "What gets a player suspended these days?" He laughs and says, "Oh, come on, sweetheart, you read the papers. HGH, the preferred drug of champions. Champion football players, anyway." Stevie had read about players getting suspended during the season for testing positive for HGH, human growth hormone. He wasn't all that familiar with it except how that it was a steroid that helped players become bigger and stronger. If his memory was right, most of the players suspended had been linemen, the biggest men in the game trying to get even bigger. Or so it seemed. Susan Carroll had paused for a moment as if catching her breath. Now she plowed on. I didn't want to act too interested, so when he brought up HGH, I just said, "What's the big deal? If you guys get suspended for it this season, so what?" He leaned in very close to me, too close, and said, "What if I told you not everyone who tested positive has been suspended?" My eyes must have gone wide because he kind of leaned back with a smirk on his face and said, "That got your attention, huh, gorgeous?" "This guy really is a sicko," Stevie said, even though he knew the lecherous nature of the doctor wasn't the issue. "Forget that," Susan Carroll said. "I told him I couldn't believe that someone had tested positive and not been suspended. Even if they had, what did it matter now, in the middle of Super Bowl week?" He laughed again and said, "Would it matter if a couple of players, let's, for the sake of argument, say 5 players, maybe even 5 offensive linemen, were getting away with positive tests right now?" "What?" Stevie interrupted. "He said that?" "Yeah, he did. Obviously, he must have been talking about 5 of the dreams, otherwise how would he know?" I tried to bluff him. I told him I didn't believe him, and that he was making it up, and there was no way something like that would happen. That something like that could stay secret during Super Bowl week. "What did he say?" "He said I would be right, unless someone was covering up the test results." Stevie gasped. "Oh my God. Is he saying that 5 dreams tested positive for HGH and the league is covering it up?" She shook her head. "He never said who was covering it up. I tried to get it out of him, but I think I came on a little too strong at that point, because he started backpedaling and claiming he was just trying to get my attention with a wild story." "You don't believe that, do you?" "Not for a second. I could see in his eyes that he knew he said too much and was trying to get out of it." "Okay," Stevie said, still trying to make sense of what he had just heard. "What do we do now?" She pointed at his computer. "We need to get online and find out more about HGH and, if we can, about how testing for it works." She was, as usual, right, even if it was almost 3 o'clock in the morning. The next 30 minutes were spent online. Stevie knew how important drug testing had become in all sports. He vividly remembered how crushed he had been in the summer of 2006 when it came out that Floyd Landis, after winning the Tour de France as an unknown, had tested positive for steroids. He'd heard all the rumors about Lance Armstrong, not to mention stories about Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, and Sammy Sosa in baseball. According to what they read, HGH was the latest in a long line of steroids, one that could only be detected through blood testing, and even then some of the doctors believed that testing wasn't 100% accurate. According to the NFL Players Association website, the players had agreed to include HGH as a tested drug only after owners had agreed that a player could only be tested once during the regular season, and that no test results would be revealed until a second, confirming blood sample had turned up positive. "Here's the crucial part," Susan Carroll said, reading through the information. "It says here that once the playoffs begin, players on playoff teams can be tested at any time because the league and union agree that any kind of drug use on a playoff team would be bad for the league's image." "Didn't a Super Bowl team have a drug issue a few years ago?" Stevie asked. "Yes," she said, sounding exasperated. "The Carolina Panthers." "Oh, right. Your hometown team." "The team my dad worked with, remember? I guess this part of the deal should be called the Panthers rule." It sounds like if this doctor, what's his name anyway, is telling the truth, it may become known as the Dreams rule. "If they get caught," she said. "His name's Snow, by the way." Stevie didn't hear the name. He was deep in thought. "You know what?" he said. "It may be up to us to catch these guys. Whoever these guys are, she said. Or is it whomever? Stevie blinked at her for a moment, then laughed. What? Susan Carroll asked. Only you would care if it's who or whom at 3 o'clock in the morning. Shut up, said Susan Carroll, though she was starting to blush. No, I love that about you. You know, it's funny. But when I finally got away from this snow guy, all I could think was, I have to talk to Stevie. As mad as I was at you today, I knew you were the only one I could talk about this. You didn't want to talk to Jamie the dude? Stevie was immediately sorry he hadn't kept his big mouth shut. Okay, I deserved that, she said. I wasn't very nice today. That's not important right now, he said. The question is, what do we do with this? We can't just go on the word of a drunken doctor. You think he was lying? No, but he was drunk and he was trying to impress you. And you know as well as I do that no one, not the Washington Herald, USTV, or CBS is going to run a story like this based on so little. Nor should they, she said. Okay, I could call Dr. Snow in the morning and ask him to go on the record. You have his number? She smiled. Oh yeah, he gave me his card, said if I needed anything to call him. My guess is anything doesn't include repeating this story for the record. No kidding. Plus, we'll have tipped our hand. If we stay away from him, he'll figure I was just a silly girl who didn't really understand what he told me. If he even remembers that he told me. We can only hope. By the way, how'd you get rid of him? You won't like it, she said. Go ahead. I told him I had to leave with Jamie and that he was very jealous. Stevie shrugged. As long as it worked. Yeah, she said. But back to the big question. Where do we go with this? Should we tell Bobby and Tamara? I don't think this is one we can tackle by ourselves. You're right, he said, but I do have an idea. What? Eddie Brennan? He might talk to me, at least on background. Rat out on his teammates? We don't even know if he knows. Well, it's worth asking. He strikes me as the kind of guy who wouldn't be happy with this sort of cover-up. She stood up and stretched. It's nearly 4 o'clock, she said. We both have to get some sleep, and I need to soak my feet or something. The person who invented high heels should be killed. She looked very tired, very stressed, and very tall, standing there, but still beautiful. He could see why dirty old men would want to hit on her. Being tall and pretty, he decided, wasn't all good. We'll talk more in the morning, he said. I have to be at the CBS compound at 8 to find out my assignment for the day. Let's meet when the media sessions are over, she said. I'll call you on your cell, and we'll figure out when and where. Okay, he said. I'll know my schedule better when the sessions are over. I think they end by 11? They do, she said. We're interviewing Ray Lewis at the end of the Ravens session. The Dreams go first tomorrow. I mean, today. Susan Carroll had her hand on the doorknob when, much to Stevie's surprise, she began to laugh. What's so funny? He said. How is it, she said, that this always happens to us? He laughed too. Just lucky, I guess. She turned to face him. He wished he had a box to stand on, but Susan Carroll stepped out of her shoes and leaned in to hug him. So Stevie took his chance and kissed her. A really good kiss. Don't give another thought to Jamie Whitsitt, she said. He smiled. Actually, he probably grinned goofily. Don't worry. He's the last thing on my mind right now. She kissed him quickly again, then stepped back into her shoes. Here we go again, she said. Yeah, he said. Here we go again.